Hi guys, I wanted to make a quick video to show you how the kit is looking. I've been working on this update for quite a while now, since the end of last year, so there's a lot of new features and changes, which I'll quickly show you some of the main ones now. So the first thing you probably notice is it's now set up using the UE5 skeleton instead of the UE4 one. And also the hands are from the VR template. I had to make a few changes to the rotations of the bone pivots so that it could copy the poses from the hands to the full body IK. So it's a slightly modified version, but this is working well. And you'll also notice that there's physics as well. So when the hand collides with a surface, you can see the purpley blue hand is my hand in real life. That's where the motion controller is, and then the orange outline is showing where the child component of the motion controller hand is. So you've got the full body IK, and then you've got the parent the parent hand, and then the child, which is simulating physics. So the one that's simulating physics, you can see it's colliding here, and also I've got physics working on the fingers. So this feels quite nice. It means you can actually touch surfaces and the fingers will react, and there's weight to it as well. So when you sort of push against it with your fingers will bend like that. But then when you push against it with your hand will it will stop there. But let me show you on an object that has some movement, so you can see what I mean. So if I push with my finger like that, you'll see the finger bends, the fingers react. But then once it gets to the hand, then because the hand is heavier, the physics bodies of the fingers are a lot lighter than the one that is set up for the main hand bone. That's got a lot more weight to it, so you can see it will actually push objects out the way. The animations on the hand are also working well, which is really nice. So you've got the physics and the animations that are blending together, so you can sort of do some interesting things like that. If you want to make your friends feel uncomfortable in VR, you can stroke their faces like this, and the physics on their head and on your fingers, it's all responsive. So this is working well and feels quite nice. And it works well on objects that you're holding as well. So like I was saying a minute ago, you can push stuff out of the way, or you can use a sort of lighter touch just with a few fingers like that, and the object won't move, but the fingers will. So let me just turn physics off for a minute on the fingers, because I want to show you the guns now, but there's some issues with the weight of the physics asset that I'm using at the moment. So if I turn this off, then the guns will work a little bit better. So there's still physics on the hand now, but I just turned it off on the fingers just for this next part of the demo. You'll also notice as well the wrist is working better now with the twisting. So there was a balloon knotting issue where it would go really thin when the wrist would get to a certain rotation, and now it just sort of flips the forearm, which is not perfect, but it's visually a lot better than the issue that was sometimes happening at sort of rotations at this point in the previous version. So it doesn't look quite as weird now. Okay, let's look at the guns. So the guns have physics, so you can see, I mean, everything has physics now. All the grabbable objects are simulating physics. So if I push it against here, you'll see that the hand stops. So it's all connected, and it's got a little bit of weight to it as well. This gun's fairly light. I put in the real world value. I think it was like 2 or 3 kilograms for this AR. But on heavier objects, which I'll do in a minute, you'll see the hand sort of falls. It kind of droops down a little bit to give you that feeling of weight in the hand. But it's not too obvious with this because it's a fairly light object anyway. Why is there no sound? There should be sound. 1 second. I can't hear sound. Maybe you guys can. It's because I've got headphones on. Let me turn those off. Okay, I can hear the sound now. I need my gun. Let me restart. I'm sat down, so I can't be bothered to get back up and crouch down to grab that. Okay, so you'll notice also there's a physics impact happening, so you get sound effects, haptics, particles when your physics objects collide with each other. And this is dependent on the physical material that's being used, or that's used on the weapon and on the object that it's colliding with. So I'll show you in a few minutes where that's set up. But yeah, this is working nicely, and it feels good. You get a nice response when you're whacking stuff, and it depends on the impact velocity. So small impacts, you won't get as much feedback. You'll also notice as well the gun, the AR, I've remodeled it slightly and I've retextured it, so it's looking a little bit nicer now. There's a bit more detail on it. Hopefully I'll have time to do the other guns as well at some point. But yeah, this gun's looking nicer now. Okay, so I'll show you some firing. So the recoil, that's physics-based as well. So you'll notice that the recoil is not just sort of up, down, like that. It's got a bit of a kind of natural sort of bouncy kind of feel to it, and you can adjust that. There's settings that can be changed so it can feel a little bit more powerful, and the weight of the gun can change as well. But when I was setting it up, this is what I thought felt good. And because the recoil is physics based, what's quite cool as well is you can actually stop the recoil by putting your hand on top of the gun. So you'll see if I hold my hand there, I can actually stop the recoil using physics. And the two-handed aiming, that's all physics-based as well now. So this is all using physics, which means that you don't get that gimbal locking issue as well, because physics uses quaternions for calculating the rotations instead of Euler rotations, so you don't get that annoying gimbal locking issue when it gets to this point. So that will help out a few people. Also, grabbing the handguard, this is dynamic, so I can actually grab it anywhere I want on the handguard. And it does actually make a bit of a difference to the amount of recoil as well. So you might notice that if I grab a bit further down, it's actually slightly more stable now. So get a little bit less recoil. What else is there? Okay, reloading as well. That's physics based. So originally it would get up to the collision and then it would just sort of snap in. And now what happens is you get to the collision and it will use a physical force to help guide the magazine in, but you still have to push it in. So it gets to there, I'm still controlling it, and then I push it in like that. And this feels quite nice because you get a little bit of push into the gun as well, so it feels like there's a bit of force behind it. And you can play with these settings as well, so you can make it so it's a little bit easier or more difficult to reload. I didn't have this in originally, but I was struggling sometimes to reload without looking closely at where I was putting the magazine, because if I was looking straight ahead and just trying to find it like that, it's not that easy to get it into the right position. So this box here applies the physical force to help kind of align it and push it to where it needs to be, but you still have to use your hand as well. So that's looking good. What else is there? Oh yeah, got a chaos example set up as well. So this is just something quite basic that I set up. You guys can hopefully use this or build on top of it, but this is just a chaos object that I've set up, and the gun will apply chaos forces, so it will break those objects like that. And I've got a wall set up as well. Oh, don't know what the fuck happened then. Let me grab this one. This wall is not working that well for some reason. I think the way I set up the chunks isn't ideal, but yeah, you get an idea of what you can do with this, with these physics objects, with these chaos destruction settings. And something I'm working on at the moment is setting up physical animations for the characters as well. So you can actually hit your friends in VR and get like a physical response and apply damage this way as well. So this will be quite fun. And I've done quite a lot of testing, but there's still some more work to do. So this will be really good when it's finished. What else is there? Okay, let's look at the at this melee object as well. So grabbable weapons, and this has got a bit more weight to it. Like I was saying earlier, I made it a little bit heavier than it would be in real life, just to show you the sort of feeling of having something heavy in the hand. And this, you can grab with two hands as well. So you'll see it's a kind of a little bit slow and not that responsive when I swing with one hand. If I swing with two hands, it's a little bit easier to actually get some power and some force behind it. The impact isn't always creating a particle or a sound. I'm still working on getting something set up that's completely reliable. It was using the hit normal, but that wasn't the hit normal impulse, but that wasn't always giving an accurate result. So now it's set up where it uses like the last 10. It takes the velocity from the last 10 frames, and then it uses that to calculate the average velocity for the impact. Most of the time this works, but you'll notice sometimes you hit it and there won't be any sound or there won't be any haptic feedback, and it will be a bit confusing because you'd expect it to when it's moving at this speed. But yeah, most of the time it's working well. Also going to be looking at a dynamic grabbing system, because this works well if I grab it where the dummy hand is oriented. So if I grab it like this, then that kind of looks normal. But if I grab it like that, then you'll see the hand is now the wrong way around to where it should be. So I need to work on a dynamic grabbing system where it will use the position from the fingers to set up grabbing instead of like a pre-oriented dummy hand within the weapon. It's okay for guns and stuff, but when you want to grab like cubes and random objects and you don't want to have to use like a preset location for grabbing, then a dynamic grabbing system along with all the physics will work really nicely. So that's on my list. Okay, and then I think that's pretty much everything. The only other little thing I was going to just quickly show you is outside of VR, just in the blueprint. So I mentioned on Discord that it's all modular now. So if I have a look at one of these blueprints, I'll have a look at this one. You'll see there's not really any code in here. So in the event graph, none of this is being used. The construction script, all it's doing is setting up these dummy hands, and that's pretty much it. So everything is handled within these components. So it means that if you want to set up a new weapon or a new object that's grabbable, all you need to do is add some of these components. So you've got different ones here. There's a grab component, that's the main one. And there's not that much you have to input into this really. It's just like your physics settings and whether you want to do like a smooth pickup, and then you have to set up where you just have to add the dummy hands, which are down here. But when I've added a dynamic gripping system, then you might not even need to use this. So it could just be a case of just adding this component, and that's all you need really. And then the networking component as well, but everything for the networking is sort of handled behind the scenes. This is all communicated with from the grab component. So I don't think you actually need to input anything into the networking component. This just handles like setting up the network, the net owner. So when you like grab an object, it sets up that pawn as the network owner of that object, so it can communicate with the server and replicate stuff to other clients via the server. And if you quit the game or something like that, then it will remove your gun or drop it or something like that. So yeah, these are all really easy to use now, so it's not actually much work to set up a new object. And then you've got like the physics impact stuff I mentioned earlier, where you can choose what sounds your object would make when it collides with different physical materials and what particles it would spawn, and the haptic feedback. So if it's like a really soft object or a lighter object, then you can lower these values. So that's really easy to set up. And the other thing I'll just mention very quickly is the physics synchronization component, which I've been working on, which basically aims to synchronize the components by applying a physical force for the other clients. So you wouldn't see anything locally, so you still have complete control over your own physics object. So all the physics simulations are run locally, so there's no latency or stuttering or any weird behavior. But for the other clients, it will try and synchronize the position of your object with where the server thinks it should be, just using a physical force, and only if it's beyond a certain threshold. So most of the time this won't even need to be used, because the motion controller that's holding the physics object will be replicated, the position of that. So most of the time everything will be in sync, and if it isn't, it will only be out of sync for just a brief moment until the location of the motion controller gets a chance to replicate to all the clients if there's a lot of latency. I'll demonstrate this in another video, but this is something I've been working on and seems to be helping quite a lot. But it's not a massive issue anyway. It's only if your game really relies on like completely accurate physics. But for the guns and stuff, it's not an issue because the location and orientation of the line trace for shooting, that will still work even if the physics goes out of sync. So it's more for like melee weapons and things like that. But I'll show you in a later video, because I've got some like debugging stuff, so it's quite easy to see what's happening when it goes out of sync and how it's being corrected and stuff. But yeah, hopefully that helps and gives you guys a bit of a preview of how the kit's looking and all the new features that are going to be included. There's still a lot of work to do, but I said I would make this video, and I'll make another one soon when I've added a few more features, because there's some stuff that I haven't shown you, which I have been working on, but it's not finished yet. So yeah, hopefully that keeps you guys happy for now. Thanks for watching.